It was a disgusting movie on my new 42 wide screen. In fact, it was probably the most disgusting movie I had ever seen in my life, and it made me sick. But I couldn't stop watching it because it was too important to my family's future. The movie started out almost like a silly comedy. Close-ups showed two smiling guys, stripped to the waist, standing in some tire shop facing each other some distance apart. One of them was a yellow-haired, tanned bodybuilder about 25 years old. The other was a short, bald man with a very hairy body, estimated to be in his early 40s. After a few seconds, the camera zoomed in so much that the entire naked bodies of both men became visible. I was terribly shocked, and the reason was not the image of the two men. I was shocked when I recognized a third nude person lying on her stomach on a pillow that was lying on a pile of car wheels between the two men. It was Ethel, my beautiful 42-year-old wife. The camera was clearly of good quality and was held by a man who knew how to use it almost professionally. The pictures were clear, moving from close-ups from different angles to larger images. Many of the close-ups of Ethel's face and eyes did not show the woman under the influence of drugs. After a few minutes, they changed positions. I got the DVD, went to my home office and made a copy, then put it in a letter, then called my childhood friend Sebastian, who worked for the local police. I'm Tommy Albertson, a 45-year-old civil engineer in my hometown. I've been married to Ethel for 16 years, living in a nice house with her and our 14-year-old son, Emil. Until that very day, I considered myself a man in an almost conventional family. Ethel and I had a cute kid, a still good sex life, good jobs, the economy under control, and a few really good friends. No reason to expect a horrible nightmare. My nightmare began when I woke up Tuesday morning. I wasn't feeling well, I had a high fever, I had to stay home from work. My wife Ethel went to her job as usual, and our son Emil went to school. It was a rainy and windy October day, and I didn't get out of bed until I knew the mail had arrived with my monthly motor magazine. I grabbed my umbrella and went to the mailbox where I found the expected magazine, 2 bills, and a brown paperback envelope. I was holding the umbrella with my left hand and pulling everything out of the box with my right when a sudden strong gust of wind almost ripped my umbrella off. The envelope fell to the ground and, of course, right into a puddle. When I was back in the house, I saw that the title on the envelope was impossible to read after it had been in the water. I opened it and discovered a DVD with a letter enclosed. The letter began with the words, "My dear whore," which alerted me, so I read it. "A copy of your pleasures with Adam and Oscar will be mailed to your husband unless you show me the expected progress in our collaboration when I call you on Friday. Your lover and dear friend." Then, putting gloves on my hands, I put the disc in the player and watched a disgusting movie. Sebastian came over, watched the movie, and said the bodybuilder wasn't hard to find and would probably be charged with rape. He hoped to find a security tape with real audio where she must have begged him to stop. Sebastian advised me to stay calm until he contacted me again. I had at least a triple reason to feel ill when Ethel came home from work. I had a temperature of almost 40°C, a cheating wife, and a broken marriage. I never suspected Ethel of cheating. We agreed that faith was an important cornerstone of a happy marriage. Sure, even I had a few temptations over the years, and Ethel must have had many times more, but I believed her when she said that family was the best thing for her. What a load of crap! Sleeping with clowns like her in the movie made my humiliation several times worse. She walked into the bedroom and asked, "Poor darling, how are you feeling? Do you want anything?" I was not tempted to reply, "A faithful wife." Instead, I looked at her and said, "I feel like a pile of shit." How could this well-built, beautiful, educated, married woman with a wonderful son and an honest husband, lots of real friends, a good job, and a nice home get involved with clowns like Adam and Oscar and sleep with them in a goddamn tire shop? I threw up in the bucket I'd put under the bed just in case. She left the room. When she returned a short time later, she informed me that she intended to sleep in the spare room so she wouldn't get infected by me. I had no objection. The next morning, she brought me breakfast before leaving for her job as a site supervisor in the payments department at a leading company in our city. As soon as she left and Emil headed off to school, I got up and dressed for a busy day. The first thing I did was go to the bank, where I closed all of our joint accounts except one, which we used for everyday expenses. Then I went to the real estate broker for information on his terms for selling our house. The last stop was my divorce attorney. Sebastian called me on my cell phone and told me that he had found Adam and Oscar. Those were their real names. But he said they had to get the letter writer first before he would get a warning from his two associates. He offered to be at my house when Ethel came home from work and try to persuade her to cooperate. He arrived a few minutes before Ethel, who was surprised to see him in our living room and joked, "Are you here on duty for Tommy's misdeeds?" Sebastian replied, "Yes, but I regret to say that they are more your misdeeds than his. Would you please sit down and answer a few questions?" She turned pale but sat down, and Sebastian continued, "We know you are being blackmailed. Who is blackmailing you, and what is he demanding of you? Is this some kind of stupid joke?" "We know what Adam Rosgren and Oscar Hulling did to you, and we want to know who made you agree to it." "Why should I be blackmailed? I don't remember us ever hearing about any Adam and Oscar. I should have been told if those characters had done something to me." I showed her the CD and said, "No problem, I can refresh your short memory by showing you what happened at the tire shop." Ethel asked me, "Do you know?" "Yes, and the best thing you can do is to tell Sebastian the whole truth before the blackmail pimp gets suspicious and starts destroying evidence of his crime." Ethel's face was ash-gray as she, sobbing, began to tell Sebastian, "His name is Ronnie Thompson. I don't know where he lives, but I have his license plate number in my address book. He demanded that I put 2 non-existent names on our payroll. When I refused, he forced me to do that disgusting thing with Adam and Oscar. I was afraid he was going to use that movie for further blackmail." She pulled a calendar out of her purse and gave Sebastian the license plate number. He called his men. A few minutes later, they called back, and he left us to take the action. Now Ethel began to cry and asked me, how could Sebastian know about my misdeeds? I told him. The address on Ronnie's blackmail letter to you was washed away in the rain. I thought it was my mail and opened it by mistake. It had a DVD movie of you, Adam, and Oscar, and an attached blackmail letter. I thought he was after our money. So I acted in self-defense and closed the bank accounts to protect our savings, and Sebastian's tied up. Have you seen this DVD, and how many other people have seen it? Yes, I've seen it, and probably no one except Sebastian and the DA, who agreed to a permanent raid to get the original tape, which hopefully can nail them for rape. What about us? I'm completely exhausted after 3 horrible days, but it might help me sort this shit out if you tell me the whole truth. Ethel's confession. I met Ronnie on a Friday afternoon about 3 months ago at a bar after work. He was a very handsome, polite man, about 10 years younger than me. He stood next to me at the bar, said I had a nice smile, and so he wanted to buy me a beer. I agreed. We had a nice chat while the beer lasted, and nothing more happened. The following Friday, he was there again. Now he was persuading me to have a beer with him in a booth. After some polite conversation, he told me that he had thought about me several times during the week. I denied it, but he noticed me blushing slightly, and we laughed together. He mentioned and explained that he works as a freelance salesman and makes good money. He saw my rings and said he envied you for having such a beautiful wife. After another mug of beer, he excused himself by saying that he had managed to find a date to brighten up his lonely life and left me with a light hug. For a brief moment, I regretted not being on a date, but I quickly recovered. I couldn't deny that I was looking forward to next Friday. I put on a slightly shorter skirt and did a little makeup before leaving work. To my great pleasure, he was waiting for me in a more inconspicuous cubicle than last Friday. He noted the shorter skirt and complimented my legs. After chatting for a while, he put his hand on my knee and, when I didn't remove it, began stroking my thighs on the outside of my skirt. Now I told him to calm down, and he obeyed. He then told me he had to miss the next week after work, but offered me lunch on Wednesday, and I agreed. He promptly bestowed a heated kiss on me and left. I can't deny that I was hot as hell, went home and had a good fuck you. On Wednesday, he stood outside my office and we left in his old VW Passat variant. Instead of a restaurant, he drove us to a shady lakeside parking lot with picnic tables and benches. He had 2 insulated bags in the trunk, one with 2 still hot lunches from the Chinese restaurant, the other with 2 bottles of chilled beer. He even had a blanket for the bench and a tablecloth for the table. He knew where to find the most secluded table, an unusual date, but I took it with humor. We had a little time left after the meal, and Ronnie took the blanket and led me to a secluded spot behind large rocks so we wouldn't be seen by the other visitors who were a fair distance away. He complimented my legs again, wanting to see all of them, and before I reacted, he unzipped my skirt and let it fall to the ground. He laid me down on the blanket. I couldn't resist. It was real quick sex for both of us, and to my surprise, I felt no remorse until I got home from work. I had a very hard time sleeping that night. Although I was terribly remorseful for what I had done, I knew that Ronnie had more to do, and the worst part was that I was looking forward to it. We sent a few text messages on Thursday, but he was out of town again for the week and wouldn't be able to see me until Wednesday of the following week. When he suggested I take a few hours off at work this afternoon, I agreed. We met again at my work, and now he was taking me to a campground on a lake about 40 kilometers from our hometown where he had rented a chalet. I was glad he hadn't gotten a room at any of the better hotels in our town where I could have met people I knew. Even this time, lunch was takeout. Although he boasted of a successful business, his budget car and cheap dates began to hint to me that he had a lot less money than he pretended. For a moment, I had the uneasy feeling that he was dating me for some other reason than love, and I should get the hell out as soon as possible. However, I did not ask any questions about it, and as I began my forbidden date with this young handsome man in a lakeside chalet, I was in a very romantic and excited mood. After a quick dinner, we stripped each other and slept together. When I returned home in the evening, I felt terrible remorse when I realized that my affair had been a stupid mistake that should be forgotten as soon as possible. But how wrong I had been. Already on Friday, Ronnie had sent me a text message and demanded that I meet him again at the after-work bar. I went there with the intention of telling him that all good stories have an ending, even our love story. He laughed when I said that and said he agreed that the love was over, but now he wanted me to pay for it. Before I could say anything, he continued by saying that he was aware of the old and simple ways in which I worked as a supervisor and demanded that I put 2 fictitious men with the most common names on the company pay list if I still wanted my chalet sex to remain unknown to my dear husband. He expected good news at the same time and place the following Friday. If sleeping with Ronnie had been a big mistake, I had now made an even worse mistake by not going straight to the police to report him for blackmail so they could prepare a trap for next Friday. Of course, I knew it was the best solution, but I was sure the price would be my marriage, so I got desperate and tried another solution. We had a security person at work, but everyone knew he was completely useless and wouldn't help me in any way. I decided to contact an old high school friend instead. He promised to get me out of the mess, but there was a new and unexpected problem. My former classmate had booked 2 weeks of vacation in Thailand with his family and was leaving on Saturday. I needed the extra time I could get. The following Friday, I simply told Ronnie that I was working on his proposal, but it would take some time to rectify the situation. Ronnie didn't believe my explanation. Now he showed me some lewd pictures of us having sex at the chalet and told me to meet him in the parking lot at the bar after my work on Monday night to give me further information about his fake men or my husband would get his pictures. I found an excuse to get home late and was there at the specified time. Ronnie was standing there waiting for me, jumped in my car, waved his vile photos, and demanded I drive in his direction. Our journey ended at a tire shop located in a seedy neighborhood outside of town. I didn't dare object when he told me to follow him to the office to get what he said were my orders. The door was open, and he led me straight into a very small restroom behind the store office where he told me it was time to pay my interest and demanded that I undress. I didn't dare object. When Ronnie was ready, he pressed a button on his cell phone and said, "The whore is yours." I started crying and screaming no, as 2 naked men, one a young bodybuilder and one very hairy, entered the room and dragged me to the tire shop. I tried my best to resist, but what could I do against 2 strong men? They carried me to a pile of tires with a pillow on it and laid me belly down on the pillow. I managed to get a few steps away, but the hairy man caught me and slapped my butt 3 times hard with his hand. Ronnie followed us out of the bathroom, turned on a halogen lamp on a tripod, and had an expensive video camera in his hands. This time he was filming from all angles. The young man started beating me as I tried to defend myself. It was rape, no doubt about it. When it got that far, Sebastian called to say that Adam, Oscar, and Ronnie were now in their custody, and he believed they had gotten their hands on all the pictures of Ronnie and the master tape of the tire shop. There was even an added bonus found. Adam had a large supply of illegal drugs, and Oscar had stolen the tires. Ethel was happy when one of her nightmares with Ronnie was over, but she knew there had to be a day of judgment for what she had done to our once happy marriage. Epilogue. Ethel and I were divorced. Emile decided to live with her, and I didn't mind that because he visits me quite often, and we do a lot of fun things together. Ethel bought my part of the house from me, and I bought her car from her. Both sold at market value. Some of our friends have chosen their side. Others stayed the same and invite us both to their parties. So far, neither Ethel nor I have had any problems when we meet at parties or at the mall. Of course, no one can call us friends, but at least we can accept each other and talk politely about our son. Neither of us has a new relationship yet. Some friends have started working out some kind of game that means that if both Ethel and I are single 5 years after the divorce, they will arrange a new marriage for us. I feel and really hope that in that time, some fine woman should be found who wants to get together with an honest guy like me in less than 5 years.